For over 20 years, Eric Nate's Euro Hockey has been helping hockey players of all ages develop their individual skills and improve on all aspects of their game. Through structured drills and innovative training equipment, Eric Nate's Euro Hockey's intense on-ice instruction challenges each student to be the best at their ability. Find a hockey clinic or summer camp that is right for you today at nateshockey.com. That's Nates hockey.com. Eric Nate's Euro Hockey, train to be the best.
And welcome into the New England Hockey Journal's RinkWise podcast. I'm your host, Evan Marinofsky, joined by the great Patrick Donnelly. Patrick, what's up?
Not much, man. We talked about on the girls pod. Big week around here, and I don't know about you. My brain is fried.
Yeah, we're recording these on a Friday at 1 p.m. We just recorded the girls. We're now recording the boys. I don't know which is going to go first, but they'll be out soon. And as you're listening to it right now, it's been a big week. Top 50 for every birth year, boys and girls, 07s through 09s, and then obviously watch list for the 10s. It has been a crazy week. Usually late March, early April is not our busy time, but this week was busy, man. A lot of late nights up. I told you there were a couple nights I was up till like 1:30 doing rankings, which I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Like, come on, that's stupid. But in this episode, we'll focus on the boys.
We will. And, you know, we alluded to this in the last pod, and I'll ask you how it was for you. But, you know, even then, like we've been working on these for a couple months now, and just as we think about them, changing them up here and there, and then really crunch time after the prep season ends, and you know, you felt like you're in a good spot, and then you get to this week, and it's like the night before the test, and you're still cramming, and you're changing things the last second, you're second guessing, you're doing a lot of extra stuff you probably don't need to do, and then it's like pencils down, they gotta go out. It's time. You can't keep changing 34 and 35 on your rankings.
Well, it's crazy because my whole rankings were correct. So all top 50 of that's where they all are officially for everybody. So yeah, I got 100%.
We're clearly feeling good about them. What was it like for you coming up with these?
It was difficult. It was really difficult. Back in the fall, I did kind of a preliminary, just like putting kids in certain spots for each age group and kind of going through the whole shebang. And then throughout the prep season and then the season in general, I would kind of look back at them and see how they were. And then this week, looking back, a lot of them were very different and things have changed quite a bit. And players have passed other players and some have fallen back. So from that perspective, it was really tough. There are always kids and teams, especially for boys, with juniors and different academy teams that maybe you're not focused on all the time. And you're like, oh God, that's right, them. And so then you've got to switch around the rankings. And there were kids in the top 50s that got bumped late because, oh my God, this kid, duh. And so that happens. And it was a fun exercise because Pat, like you and I, we're in the rinks all year. And while we're not watching every game, every showcase, thinking of ranking the kids, it's always in the back of our head. And to actually get to do it, which we've never done, that was a really cool thing. And I enjoyed it. And we're going to be doing them going forward. Obviously not all the time, but we will be doing them more going forward, updating them, seeing where they're at. And there was a fun part of it. I felt like if I was a GM and I was like, you know, if I was a college recruiter looking at these players, how would I rank them? That was sort of how I approached it. It was really fun to do it like that.
Yeah, and as you said, these will change. Players will come in, players might come out, and we'll get to more top 50s. The 10s right now are just a watch list. They will soon become their own top 50 as we get more eyes on them as they get older. Then we'll get into ensuing birth years, and it makes me feel very old to think about the 11s and the 12s, which thankfully are still a little ways away, not super far off, still at arm's length for the time being. But let's start with the 07s for you. Kind of any overall thoughts in this group?
I think one thing that I ran into with the 07s that was difficult, and it was difficult with the 08s and a little bit with the 09s, is that you have a mix of kids in prep or U18 hockey, and then you have kids in junior. And not all of the kids in junior, maybe it's their first year, maybe it's their second year, some of them aren't dominating quite yet. They're having good seasons, but maybe not dominating. And you have to weigh that against kids who are dominating prep. And I ran into this with the 08s as well, a little bit with the 09s, as I said. And so that was something that stuck out to me. I would also say the 07s, not super deep. Not super deep. Now, there were two 07s that came to mind that didn't get in on this list because they're in college. Again, we did not have college hockey players in our list. Richard Gallant and Steven Luciano, who would have been in it, but both were in college this year for the full season, so they were not eligible. But that's only two players. So overall, I just think the 07s from New England, not extremely deep. And that was something I ran into sort of in the back half of the rankings.
Well, we'll start with the top half, your top 10 or even your top 5. What was the thought process here? Was there, Carter Amico's one, but was there anyone who could have challenged him or what, how did things shake out here?
Yeah, I mean, Carter, it's funny because Amico had sort of an interesting year where he goes back. Goes back to Muskegon. Clearly needed some more seasoning. He dealt with injuries a lot at the NTDP. So I think jumping from that to college was a big thing to sort of a gap to bridge. I still look at Amico as a 6'5" defenseman who's a second-round pick, and I'm like, if that kid hits, which he should, that's a long-time NHLer. And obviously, a lot of things need to go right, injuries, play, all that stuff. But it's hard for projection, right? We talk about this, Pat, where it's like what they currently are and what they could be. A top 4 stalwart right shot defenseman, it's hard to pick against that. And so he was still my number 1. But like Teddy Mutrin had a really good year with Moncton this year. He was someone that was sort of mulling going to BC last year, decided to take another year of seasoning, went to the Q, had a good year for Moncton. And so he challenged as well. And Chudzinski in his first junior season, obviously Mutrin had more points, but Chudzinski in his first junior season had a good year. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see sort of what he does next year. He should be a top 90 pick. So I'd say though Mutrin and Chudzinski were close. But just for like, if I'm talking about NHL projections, like I think Amico could be a top 4 right shot D-man on an NHL team. That's a big deal. Teddy Mutrin to me is more so at the NHL level, a good Energizer bunny, bottom 6, can play anywhere type player. And Chudzinski's more maybe middle 6, but I still need to see a little bit more before I'm like, yo, officially. And again, these are just projections. So for number 1, Amico to me made the most sense.
Yeah, and you talk about that top 4 profile, and you and I have talked about this plenty offline or elsewhere where, boy, do teams fall over themselves for especially a 6'5" right shot defender who has top 4 upside. God, do teams fall over themselves and go ballistic for those guys. So obviously a lot of upside there. Any thoughts further down the top 10? Obviously some guys still in prep here, a mix of guys in juniors, or anyone even outside of the top 10 who could have pushed.
Yeah, one interesting thing was Brosnan versus Baldwin, 4 and 5 on D. I think it's razor thin between them. They're both phenomenal skaters. Baldwin's faster. Brosnan's a little bit better at picking his spots in terms of when he's going to rush the puck. Baldwin had a good year for St. John, very productive. Obviously, Brosnan had a really good year, very productive with Dexter as well. So those, I don't want to say they evened out because Baldwin did it in the queue, whereas Brosnan did it in prep. But I just think overall ability, slightest edge to Brosnan. But like, I'm very excited to see what Baldwin does. 5th round pick. I think that's, as I said, it's razor thin. Like I would go with Brosnan if I had to pick one over the other. But like Baldwin's hard to pick against, man. I mean, that kid can freaking fly. So like that was my top 5. I think it was a pretty clear top 5. I didn't like, what's interesting is like Graf at 6. I'll say this. I've had conversations with hockey people throughout the year. When Justin Graf left Rivers, I thought, Graf was typically a second liner at Rivers, got team's second wave, put up a ton of points, but I was very much like, I don't know how that's going to translate. How does he do in junior? Well, he shut me up. He shut my thoughts up because he led Cedar Rapids in points and he had a damn good year and he ends up committed to Harvard. And so for me, he's number 6. He moved himself up, not just into the top 10, but one of the better players in the top 10. And like Alex Donovan lit it up at Shattuck for a bunch of years, goes to St. John, similar type thing. Billy McCausland, I'd be curious if people would debate this because he's in prep and some others are in like the USHL. I just think the fact that he's been so dominant the last 2 years in prep, especially this year with such a young, sort of inexperienced Nobles team, still has a bananas year in terms of stats. I just love McCausland's game. I think he can play anywhere. I think his compete's ridiculous. I think he's got a great shot, super skilled. So to me, he's in my top 10. And then you get into D, right? Like 9, 10, 11. They're all puck movers. Shane Gould, Evan Jones, and Marco Sinercha. I give the slight edge to Gould. He's been very productive this season. Jones is the biggest of that crew, but Sinercha is also super dynamic, creative puck mover. That's how I'd rank them. But that was the defensemen in that top 12-ish were hard to sort of parse through because they all had their own sort of tiers and battles that they were in.
We'll get into 11 and 20 now. And, this is a range where you get your first goalie with Jack Victorn. And you have a couple other, prep standouts, whether Evan Nee. Overall thoughts from this group?
Yeah, this was another tough group. I mean, Josh Phillips just committed to Princeton. Congratulations to him. So I thought he ranked very high this year, given his size. There's a lot to like there. And then, Evan Nee is another, you mentioned Nee, like a prep kid, uncommitted still, but I thought he had such a good winter that he moved himself. He was someone I think before the winter, I may have put more in the 21 to 30 range, but he had such a good winter and was so dominant that he moved himself into the top half of the next tier of 11 through 20. And again, he's going to Halifax next year. I'd be curious to see. And then one thing that is hard to measure is players take their licks in junior. Someone like Indiana Grossbard, started in the Q, I believe, and now is in the BCHL. He's gone through some adversity this year. I still value him highly. Cam Karen has had his licks in junior. I still value his size and what he's able to be highly. Dylan Crayer has had difficulties in junior, but again, like I think that can help you. And at times I'm like, I think that helps players down the road. So I put him in my top 20 as well. And Jack Broderick, someone in prep that before the season, I was sort of like, he's a Cornell commit. I hadn't really seen it with him. He shut me up as well. I thought he had a really good winter. I thought he was super effective, super smart, great in all situations. And he was a good one to round out the top 20. So that was sort of my biggest thought with them. And then, Vic Thorne is a goalie. I think he's been really good with Sioux City. I've always liked Vic Thorne. I just like I'm not a goalie guy. I'm not going to say pretend that I can spot the magic in goalies.
We are an anti-goalie podcast.
We are an anti-goalie podcast. Yes, anti-goalie. But he's someone that I've always liked the tools of. It makes sense, and it's worked in Sioux City this year, and I'm surprised that he doesn't have a Division I commitment so far.
We'll get into 21 and 30, and this is kind of where a trend starts to emerge, dare I say, where first half of this group, this next tier is junior kids, and then after 25, a lot more prep, and even as you go through the rest of the top 50, there's a lot more prep presence. What was sort of the thoughts here?
Yeah, Freddie Meyer's someone at 21 I've always thought was ridiculously underrated. I know he's committed to BU, but I still think he's really underrated in just his ability, his physicality, how just dogged he is and how intelligent. So to me, there's value there. Like I do think he is an effective defenseman for BU someday. Watroba, Monroe has had some struggles in junior. I still think he's in the top half of his birth year from New England. Watroba has had a pretty good year with Charlottetown. He was in there as well. James Odeniak, I've always liked as a good shutdown defenseman, and that's continued this year. I think he's going to be a great fit for a place like Brown. Dabrowski's always been really fast. And then you're right. You get into this next tier of a lot of prep kids. Donatelli's uncommitted. Dylan Hall's uncommitted. Miglior's uncommitted. Husted Edwards, Fitzpatrick, they're all uncommitted. These are players I have highlighted, and it's kind of perfect. They're all together. Junior is going to be really important for them, right? For Max Donatelli, it's going to be D1 schools want to see what he can do in junior before committing to him. Dylan Hall, I think, is a similar one. 6'3" left shot D-man. Miglior is such a shifty, fast player. Like, I love watching him play, and I'd be so curious to see what colleges think of him. Husted Edwards, very, very, very high compete and offensively effective. And then Jack Fitzpatrick's a great example of someone that I think before the season, I would probably have assumed might not even be in the top 50. Proved himself this year at Dexter. Had a really good year. You're starting to see him figure it out with his size and being more physical and being a little bit better of a skater and taking smarter routes. So he ended up kind of rounding it out at 30. But yeah, interesting crew of players for sure.
Before we move on, just another kind of similar thing, 31 through 50, a lot more prep kids. You also have some kids in the NAL, and obviously a lot more uncommitted tags here. Anyone here maybe underrated you want to highlight?
Underrated. Tommy Brown had such a good year at Canterbury, and I'm so curious to see what he does next season via junior and kind of what the interest level is like in him. D'Olimpo is going to Danbury, I believe, so that's going to be an interesting thing to follow. Rich Kavanaugh. Noah points at Yoshida. People may have been surprised at this at 39. I love watching him. I think he's so skilled. I think he's so effective. He had a really good year for Exeter. Very curious to see what he does. Saja's another one that I've always found extremely uncommitted. Not uncommitted. Underrated. He's a dog, dude. You can't trust Saja at all. No, underrated. I'm looking at the story and I saw uncommitted. He doesn't care, man. Doesn't care, dude. Like it's crazy. No, extremely underrated. One other thing that I think is interesting, and I'm not going to point to specific players because that's unfair, but you see with the 07s, kids who were committed early on in their recruiting process getting passed by a little bit, and that's natural. But I think that's something with the CHL ruling that we're going to see less of, where schools are only going to commit the top kids, the best of the best. And then for the rest, it's like, we got to see what you do over the next couple of years and then junior hockey before we're going to commit to you. And I think the 07s and even the 08s are sort of maybe the last birth year where that's as much of a thing. And if you look at this 07s list, there are a lot of college commits near the bottom, and there are college commits that didn't make this list who I think fit that bill of like, it's just the natural progression of players. It's nothing they did. It's just other guys surpass them. That's okay. But I think that's something we're going to see maybe less and less of with the 10s, with the 11s, because of the CHL ruling and the transfer portal and teams waiting before committing these kids rather than trying to get on them all early on.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to those next birth years. We'll get to the 08s, and you wrote about it in the rankings on the website, but this year is really deep, and it'll get even deeper with the 09s, or at least, you assume. Top 10, you got Casey Mutrin, number 1, Jamie Glantz, 2 NTDP kids. What are the overall thoughts here at the top?
Yeah, I mean, just real quick with the overall thoughts. I remember you said with the girls, like the 09s, you could have done like a top 75. I could have done a top 75 with the 08s. There were some players like an Andrew Martin at Brooks was really difficult to leave off this list. Like someone I genuinely think is a Division I prospect got left off this list. And there were others too that were really hard to leave off because the 08s are so damn deep. To the top, I still put Casey Mutrin at number 1. He's had a good season, but the size and what he is and what he can be, where it's like, that's a potential middle 6 center in the NHL, 6'3". He's also a leader. Like that's a dude that you want to follow into battle, a locker room guy, a guy that is well-liked among his teammates. I have to go 1 with him. And just his ability to play anywhere. And then you have someone like Jamie Glantz, who, we talk a lot about. Couple of years ago, Teddy Stiga had sort of a iffy U17 year and then pops as a U18. I don't know if Glantz is quite at that level, but Glantz popped, dude. Like Glantz had a really good U18 year, so he's number 2. And then it gets I don't want to say foggy, but it gets tough where like you have a lot of candidates. I honestly, Pat, like I would say anybody in the top 10 has a case for number 3, but Nolan Discossi, was on the Halinka team last year. Really good frame. Has had a pretty good season in Charlottetown. He's someone that I think is going to be even better come next season, wherever he ends up playing junior hockey, whether it's Charlottetown or somewhere else. I don't know, so I'm not going to speculate. And then you have David Bosco. I think David Bosco somehow is always underrated by USA Hockey. Dude tore it up at like every select camp, and they'd just be like, yep, we're good, which I never really understood because he's so skilled, and he's had a really good year in Cedar Rapids. And then a good example of someone that has shot up this list, like if we did an 08 watch list 2 years ago, like in 2023 or 2024, I don't know if Manchuso's on it. Like he was a good player with Concord High School. I don't know if he's even on the watch list. He's number 5 in this. So like that's a great example of how much things can change, where Manchuso a couple of years ago was probably like a top 30 08. Now he's top 5. And I don't know if there's a lot of debate about that. Should be an NHL draft prospect. So he's 5. Oscar Drobchinski is as reliable a defenseman as you'll find. I love his game. Had a good year at St. John. It should be even better next year. He was at 6. And then Will Bent's always been someone that has been a higher end 08 in Massachusetts and New England. He was at evaluation camp. I have him at 7. Gonna need to see more out of him in the queue for him to continue to rise. But again, a player that has all the tools, has the size. Puglisi was just dominant this year for Winchendon. I think he rightfully moved himself into the top 10. Ciardiello, I think similar type thing, not as dominant during the regular season, but dominant in the postseason. I think you watch him and you're like, that's a Division I player. And Noah Servillas. I don't think Servillas popped as much as people thought he might this year, but I also think that can be cracked up to that Dexter roster was just ridiculous. And there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. So I think if you put Servillas on a team not as deep, he's above 50 points, still had a really good year. But he rounds out my top 10. But all those top 10 kids could have made sense for number 3.
Then we get into 11 and 20. Is there anyone here that could have been in the top 10, whether a Brian McFadden, number 2, or, as you get further down, anyone that could have pushed there?
McFadden had a legit case for it. I think he's someone that when we look back, if like McFadden's ceiling is similar to Amico, where it's like, that's, he could be a potential like everyday NHL defenseman, big right shot. We might look back on this when he's in the NHL in 7 years and be like, oh my God, remember when we had him at 11? Like, that's crazy. But I think given where he's at now, that's an accurate portrayal. Matthew Crayer, someone I've always really liked. So speedy, really offensive offensively. Effective offensively. Oh my God. See, this is the second straight podcast we've done. It's starting to wear on me a little bit. Effective. He's offensive offensively. And then Mason St. Louis, someone I would have thought would have been in that top 10. He had a good senior year in prep, still very productive, but not quite top 10 worthy. I still have him at 13. I think he's due for a big season next year. And then you get into a lot of junior players, right? Jude Heron, Charlottetown, Ryan Poirier, Sioux City, Jacoby Weiner, Moncton, Parker Stockseth with Sherbrooke in the queue. Those are all players that have that high upside that they could potentially go into the top 10. And then like Jackson Smale had a really, really, really strong prep season. And Owen McHale's someone, Pat, fits that same bill where like before the season, I'm like, what can he be? Like, can he get into that top 20? And he did, because he showed he has a really good offensive side that's been effective. And then Cole Saborin, who I think the world of, and is a really, really, really effective winger offensively, really good shot, speedy. So those are my top 20. But again, like it was hard, man, with this 08 group. It was really hard.
As we get further down and some more prep standouts start to emerge, Elliot Lennon, Atai Heimovitz, Tommy Wilkinson, JD Rothstein, Caden Donnie, as you go down the list in that next 21 through 30 range, who stood out for you in this group?
Yeah, interesting group. I mean, I have the goalies to start. I give Nealon Johnson the slightest edge over Elliot Lennon. It's not by a lot. I just a teeny bit more. But both have been, Johnson was outstanding in prep this year and probably wins goalie of the year. We haven't really decided that yet, but he's definitely going to be in the running. And Lennon's been nasty for 2 years and both guys should be, starters someday in college. I think you get into the next group, Heimovitz, I think, has really boosted his stock over the last year. Thornborough's had a tough year in Moncton, but I do think the tools are still there for him to be an effective junior player and someday be a good guy in college. Tommy Wilkinson had a good year. JT Rothstein, someone that maybe if we were doing this list 2 years ago, may have been higher. But I still think his skill and his ability makes him to be a potential Division I guy down the road. Caden Danya, it's interesting. Danya is a fascinating case because there are people who are bullish on him and there are people who are like, he should be further down the list because he's not controversial, but everybody has a different opinion of him. And I felt like 27 is an accurate look at where he is. There are some that are like, he should be top 15. He was at evaluation camp. Look at his ceiling. And there are others who are like, I don't know if he can hit that ceiling. He should be lower. I think that's the perfect area, somewhere in the middle. Maybe that's fence sitting, but that's what I think Danya is. And I hope, and I root for him, and I hope that he proves people wrong. But that's where I have Danya. And I think that might be one where people would debate either way of what he could be. And then Naj had a good year at Choate. Raucus is someone that still has dealt with injury the last 2 years, wasn't injured this year, got better as the year went on at Salisbury. And then Ian Sherman, very good shut down puck moving defenseman. So yeah, that's my top 30.
Then 31 through 40 and 41 through 50, kind of along similar lines with the 07s. Are any under the radar, anyone who you think might be a position to rise up in ensuing top 50s?
I look at the goalies. Tommy Saulnier is a great example of someone that I'm very surprised. I wouldn't be shocked, and this isn't informed. This is just me. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if someone a college took a chance on him. Just given, like Brian DeCourt always says, shots faced is the most important thing for goalies, and he has faced a crap ton of shots the last 2 years, be it in the fall and during the prep season, and he's been damn good. And he was damn good this year, goalie of the year candidate for sure. And has the tools. He's not 6'3", but he's 6 feet or 6'1". He's listed here at 6 feet. So like, he's someone that I look at. Ethan Bauer, I think his stock really rose at Belmont Hill this winter where he came on. So he's another one that I look at, and I think there's something there for him in terms of Division I. Vinny Durso, what a year, man. 2 straight amazing years at Tabor. I may be underrating him, putting him at 44, but I think he is phenomenal. And I think Carson Mertz, who's one ahead of him, has had a really good year in the BCHL with Blackfalds. He's someone who's also been underrated. So I think if you're a college and you're looking for good 08 goalie commits, Saulnier, Bauer, Durso, Mertz, like those are guys that I would be looking at. In terms of other uncommitted, Mitchell Smith is so underrated. I put them together. Zach Gill at 41, Mitchell Smith at 42. I find them ridiculously underrated. And if I was a Division I school, I'd be taking good hard looks at them. And then further down, Batillier is really good, is a great uncommitted prospect. Missed a lot of the year due to injury, or else it'd probably be higher. So those are mine that sort of stand out among the rest of the 08s.
We'll get to the 09s now. And I don't know about you, but for me, as I did my 08s and 09s, I thought it was going to be easier, and it was in fact harder, just with how deep those birth years are. Just kind of in between the 08s and 09s here, how did you feel about that?
It's interesting. Like I think the 08s have the edge on depth versus the 09s, but the 09s have the higher end players. The 09s have, you have the top 4 kids here are NTDP kids. And I think the 09s, you have a higher chance of those kids becoming big names down the road than the 08s. But again, that's now. That could change. I don't think it changes who the best overall player is of this whole group. And that best overall player is in the 09s.
So let's talk about them. And these first 4 in the 09s are guys we've talked about a lot, like ad nauseum the last few years. And I think, I don't know about you, but any other class, there might be a couple others that would have cases for number 1, but it feels like there's a pretty clear number 1 here.
Yeah, I mean, it's Carter Meyer. And it's funny because other birth years, Finn Sears, Sam Pandolfo, Jake Boganicki would have real cases. I just think what Meyer's done this year at the program's been outstanding, right? He's been their best player. He has produced so much that he's playing up on the U18 team. You have draft rankings coming out saying that he's number 6 next year, number 5, number 3. Personally, I'd have him at number 1. And I say that as having watched none of the other players that much. But I think no matter what, he is a for sure lottery pick and probably a top 5 pick. And this is over a year out, so a lot can change. He can rise a lot. He could also fall a little bit. So, but I just think that the ability to slow the game down, his intelligence, his ability to do anything, like his skill is so high. Carter Meyer's skill is so high. His shot's ridiculous, but you could put him on the 4th line and he would hold his own as a 4th line center. So Carter absolutely is number 1 in this group. I think he's the best player of the whole bunch for all of these birth years. But look, I mean, you look at someone like a Jake Boganicki, 6'2", really solid 2-way defenseman. I think there's a chance he has a really good U18 year next year and rises up into potential first round pick territory. Again, this is over a year out, but that's what that kind of player does. Sam Pandolfo, 6'4", extremely smart, has that hockey pedigree, has dealt with injury this year. How many times though do we see U17 forwards who have tough years but end up popping as U18s? Would I be shocked if Sam's one of those kids? No, absolutely not. So I could see him rising. And then Finn Sears has had a really good U17 year. Should have another really good U18 year. And to me, looks like a potential second or third round pick next year. Or he pops and becomes a potential first. So like, that's ridiculous upside for your top 4. And oh, by the way, at number 5 is Caden Pellegrino, who's a wizard with the puck. So like, that's a really strong top 5. And then you have some others who had cases for top 5 as well. But like, that top 5 is pretty damn good, man.
Yeah, it's insane. It feels a lot of similarities between the boys and the girls 09s, where they're that top echelon is that good. We get into 6 through 10, and even just outside of the top 10, where there's someone who could have pushed for the top 10, or guys who maybe rose into the top 10 this past season. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Declan Watton is a great heavy power forward, 203 pounds, and I should say 6'1". I don't want to just leave it at 203 pounds, 6'1", 203. Had a good year for Como. Again, he's an 09. So like, you do have to give deference to kids who are in junior as 16-year-olds, because it's much harder. Their numbers are not going to pop off the page, and that's okay. But again, Cornell commit, perfect kind of Cornell commit. Caminella is a phenomenal puck-moving defenseman. I believe he becomes eligible this year, come August 1 to commit. He should be a high-end Division I commit. Good year in Halifax. Easton Anello, I'm curious what people think about this, because I think he's phenomenal. I think he has the frame, he has the size, he has the skating, he has the puck moving, he has the smarts to be a future really good Division I defenseman. And I had him at 8, and I think that's one that may have been outside of the ordinary for people. I've always been really high on him, and no, it's not just because he's a UMass commit. Don't even try to say that. I know.
Oh, there he goes.
Biased Evan again. But then Brody Berard, who's challenged himself this year being at Youngstown. He is a tough dude, man. I don't know if you've seen any of his fights this year. Hand up, I don't want to fight Brody Berard. Really tough kid, really physical. He was that way at Mount. It's continued into junior. He's kicking ass. He's someone that makes a lot of sense as a good, gritty Division I defenseman down the road, and then in the NHL. Like, he's the kind of guy you want on your side. And then Camden Jackson, I think this is the highest I rated a goalie out of anybody, but 09 was insane. Funny story. Brendan Borges, who's the head coach of Williston, I caught him outside of Seb's early in the season, and Williston was having a really tough time scoring. And I was like, "Oh, Brendan, you hit really talented team." And he's like, "Evan, the problem is that Camden's so good in net that the kids don't know what it's like to score in practice, because they can't score in the freaking kid." And he ended up continuing to have a ridiculous year. So I think with his size and what he is, I think he's top 10. I do think he's top 10 for the 09s.
11 through 20 now, and a lot of usual suspects that we talk about a lot in the top end of this part, with Joe Kovaluzzi, Kurt Beck. As you get further down, what were your thoughts on this next year?
It's interesting because Kurt Beck's someone that the production wasn't really there at Dexter this year, stats wise, and again, it was a packed team, but just the physical traits he has and what he can and should be over the next couple of years, to me, provides a lot of intrigue. Like, he's someone that I would think, I'd have to look up his birthday for the 2027 NHL draft. That would make a lot of sense. April 2nd, 2009. He'll be eligible next year. He makes a lot of sense as a potential draft pick. Providence commit. I know Providence obviously super high on him. Kovaluzzi, again, left Cushing midway through the season. I thought he had a good year at Cushing, but again, I don't know if he just felt like he'd outgrown the level or whatever, but he goes on to Dubuque, has played some games with the U17 NTDP team. The offensive skills there, he has a ridiculous shot and an ability to get to those scoring areas, so I like him a lot at 11, sort of just outside that top 10. He was a tough call because I almost put in the top 10. Gilberto always produced at Mount. Again, challenged himself at Halifax this year. Jakob, really good two-way defender. Palmer, I think, is criminally underrated as a phenomenal puck mover, and he's 6'1", which obviously helps. Someone that maybe should have went higher, and people from New England may not have known a lot about him prior to this year, but Jack O'Dell, people went and watched Andover games this year, he was a stalwart for them. So he was someone that I think could rise. And if he leaves the region, I do think he falls off the list because he's not from here. But I hope he stays just so we can keep moving him up and he can play his draft year next year. But he's someone that absolutely plays like an NHL draft pick, and I really, really like. Davis is fast. Costello, really good shutdown 6'2" defender. There are a lot of good defenders. Matthew Koch, Grayson Espenshade's a great goal scorer. So that 11 through 20 group was really good too. No question.
And now we get into 21 through 30. And one of the things you kind of mentioned with this group is just the amount of skill with the forwards.
Yeah, I mean, man, you've got like Gingaleski, so skilled. Kane Bickle, so skilled. Owen Kaler, ridiculously skilled. Desjardins, Alex Taylor was someone I had on my breakout list. I think I had Cade Noonan as well before the season, and both did break out. Keith Olympia, super skilled, put up a ton of points this year. So like, Noonan is maybe the outlier where like he's bigger than a lot of these kids and he's tougher and it's like compete. And while these kids may be faster, like he's going to out battle you for a puck. And like, that's his calling card. But like, man, Taylor, Olympia, Desjardins, Kaler, Bickle, Gingaleski, like these are gamers. These are kids that are fast and skilled. And like, those are forwards. Like when I look at that group, I think they're all uncommitted except for Bickle is UNH. And yeah, the rest are uncommitted. Those are guys I'm looking at and tracking if I'm a Division I coach over the next year. But in terms of what they turn into and what they could be for you in college, because like they have they have different X factors that work for all of them.
We'll get into our next two tiers, 31 through 40, 41 through 50. One of the things that stood out for me just scrolling through, we have our first MIAA player of all of them so far.
Damn right we do. Ryder Bissett, man, going to Dexter, like such a dynamic defenseman, has the size, has always sort of stood out when he plays against his own age, the best kids in his own age group with the Junior Eagles. Like, so he's someone that I think can go to Dexter and make a big impact next year. And is a definite potential Division I player. His teammate actually at St. John Shrewsbury, I think they were teammates. Chase Warsofsky's another one that like has that potential, showed you it down the stretch for Cushing in that production. So Liam Gilderson was MIAA. I'm definitely forgetting some others, but like there are some players in there that are interesting, uncommitted prospects that could be good Division I prospects down the line. And
then we'll get to our 10s now, unless you have any closing thoughts on the 09s, but the 10s, we're just doing a watch list to start. They'll become top 50 soon enough. They're yet to be published as we record, but I have the draft in front of me, which is nice. Any 5-6 players in this range that you think are absolutely worth keeping an eye on?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing, and they probably won't be on our list because they're going to likely be leaving the region, but the Mount kids, Thomas Boisvert, Wilson Boumediene, MJ Campbell, Zach Charbonneau, like those are top of the line players. Boisvert is so fast, so competitive. Boumediene is so skilled. Campbell had a huge year with 101 points in 51 games, and Charbonneau kind of has it all as like a power forward. Those are going to be like top end 10s that you hear about quite a bit over the next couple of years for college, for juniors, and for NHL draft. No question. It's just tough because they're not from New England and they're probably going to be leaving the region if I had to guess. So you may not see them on future lists, but they are very much going to be a part of our thing. Outside of them, I'm going alphabetically here. I look at like someone like a Logan Cotter. I just think he should have been at NTDP evaluation camp. I thought he's just such a good puck moving and skating defenseman. He's going to be someone in prep next year that I think is a complete force. Cam Daigle was really productive at St. George's this past winter. Jake Donatelli, very good puck mover. Carter Felt is a dude. Like that's a dude. 34 points this year, led Rivers. Just the absolute power forward, a true gamer. Sam Fishbone, such a good puck moving defenseman. Height and size be damned. I watched him elude so many big hits on the forecheck this year. So when people are like, oh, he's too small. It's like, okay, but like he knows how to get out of that kind of pressure. He still finds a way to produce with that pressure on him. So I love him. And then like Sam Lee, actually, this is a good time to say it. This happened right before we recorded. Sam Lee and Jack Wheely. Those are the names you're going to hear a lot of because they just made the NTDP. So congratulations to them. We'll have a reaction video on Instagram coming of sort of my thoughts on the teams. I thought both of them should have made it. They were on what I thought and what my team would have been, because, Lee is a phenomenal high-end skill guy, and Quealy can play anywhere and is, high compete. So congrats to them. They are on that 2010s list. And, some others like a Brendan Martin, really good defenseman. Dylan Rothstein, I think, so underrated. Had a really good year production-wise for Taft. Blake Wilichowski just tendered with Cedar Rapids in the USHL. He, dealt with a lot of shoulder injury throughout the year. So those are my 10s. I know it's a lot more than you asked for, but those are sort of my 10s that I'm watching.
Well, real quick, just two more MIAA kids in here, Jackson Fleming and Colin Walsh. And Jackson Fleming, obviously the goalie at CM, 6'3", 249. Are you kidding me?
I know, man. Oh my God.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, I was looking it up. I'm a bad judge of height and weight from the stands. Like, I would never trust my eye on that. But like his USHR thing, or not USHR, his elite prospects had that. And then Neutral Zone had him at like 6'1", but like 256. And I was like, I'm going to go with 6'3", 249. That makes a little more sense. I don't know which is real or not, but he's a big kid. He's big. And I think that definitely helps him. And he's a top goalie prospect. And then Colin Walsh, really good player, man. Lit it up for Framingham this year. Like,
here goes the Framingham guy.
Yeah, I'm going
First
on this.
UMass, now Framingham.
There are 100% people out there who think, we had to keep these to 30. I initially wanted them to be longer. But you said, Evan, I don't want to work that hard. I want to just make it 30. I said, okay, fine. We'll do that. I agreed with you on that. And people are going to say, oh, Evan has him on there because he's from Framingham. You go watch him. You go watch Colin Walsh. He deserves to be on that list. He's going to be a force in prep next year, and is someone that I think is a Division I prospect. So there you go. And you know what? The 2010s top 50 is going to look a lot different when we do it coming up, whenever we kind of kick that off. So yeah.
Well, that does it for Best of New England. You can check out the top 50 boys 07, 08s, and 09s on the website, as well as the watch list for the 10 players to watch. And, that will be fluid as we get more into those.
Do you want to skate fast? For 50 years, Laura Stam instructors have taught youth players to pros how to skate correctly, powerfully, and fast. Players who attend Laura Stam power skating programs learn how to skate fast by learning how to execute every maneuver in hockey. They become powerful, stable, efficient, and explosively fast skaters. If you can't wait for a clinic, join our subscription skills video service, and we'll show you the skills taught at our clinics in an easy-to-use video format with training plans to guide your training. Register or subscribe now at laurastam.com. That's LauraStamm.com. You can learn to skate fast.
I think it's time for overtime, time permitting.
Overtime.
Oh, yeah, time permits for overtime, because we have a grudge match going here between Evan and Pat when it comes to the trivia questions provided during the segment known as overtime, which is what we're going to do today, but a little different. First ever, what do we call it? Guess the date, guess the year showdown. I have seven moments in the sport of hockey, historical moments. You need just pick the year. So I'll provide if I say, the hockey puck was invented. I don't know when that was. That's not on the list, but we'll go first to Pat, and he'll say, 1823, and we'll go to Evan. And Evan, if you want, you can answer the precise same year that Pat did. And then, of course, now, you know what? Yeah, I guess you can't do that, because that would necessitate a tie on the thing. Anyway,
how about if he gets it wrong, I get a chance to?
Well, no, I was going to reveal the answers at the end. Do you guys have a pen, or we'll do this on the honor system, I guess. If you write it down and then reveal it, that's the way we'll do it. And then after we've done all seven, I'll reveal who wins, because that way we get a little drama here, and not just Pat winning by the time we get to the third question. Anyways. Number one, first event in hockey history, the first NHL Stanley Cup was won by the Toronto Arenas arenas. I don't know. So write that down. Get the date in your head.
So just the year?
Just the year. Right. Yeah. We're not going to go calendar here. So, Pat, do you have your answer prepared?
I do.
Okay. And lay it on us.
1918.
Okay. Pat says 1918. Evan, to you?
I should do the same thing he did, but I'm not gonna. 1901.
1901. Okay. Next moment in history. The Boston Bruins have become the first U.S.-based NHL team. So I'll get
Evan. If you don't know this,
I'll give you. I mean, these are in chronological order, so I can tell you it is not 1918. It is some year after 1918.
I'm debating. I know what it is.
It's only been their marketing for like the last.
Yeah,
10 years.
I don't know. I have it written.
Okay, what is it?
1924.
Good answer. 1920.
You're going to answer that as well, Pat? Okay.
I was between 23 and 24. I was very nervous.
All right. We move on. The Boston Bruins win the Stanley Cup in a series punctuated by Bobby Orr flying through the air after scoring the winning goal. This might be easy. I don't know. We'll go to you first, Pat.
1970.
1970, he says. Evan
1970.
also has 1970. Okay. All right. We go to Evan to answer this one first. Ray Bourque scores his first NHL goal in his debut game against the Winnipeg Jets. What year was that?
Pat looks confused, so I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to write it until Pat's written it.
No, I've written it down. It's just it's a foggy area of Bruins history.
All right. Evan, you answer this one first.
1979.
1979. Pat, what do you got?
I said 1978.
Okay, 1978. We move on. The old WHA dissolves, resulting in 4 teams moving to the NHL. The Edmonton Oilers, the New England Whalers, Hartford Whalers, we know them as, Quebec Nordiques, and Winnipeg Jets. Those 4 teams join the NHL in what season? Let's see, whose turn is it? Evan, Pat, Evan, Pat, Evan, Pat. What do you got?
I said 1980.
1980. Evan, what do you got?
I said 1974.
1974. Okay. Next one. Professional NHL hockey players are first allowed to compete in the Olympic Games. Professional hockey players are first allowed to compete in the Olympic Games. And now I keep forgetting whose turn it is. It's Evan's turn.
Is it the year they allowed it or the first Olympics they were allowed?
The first Olympics that they were allowed to play in.
Okay.
What do you got, Evan?
I got 1996.
1996. Pat, what do you got?
2000.
2000. Interesting. Okay. And
right.
finally, I don't know if this one probably should be a layup for you guys, but I'm not sure. A new era of expansion begins with the inaugural season of the Las Vegas Golden Knights. First season of the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Pat, I think it's Evan's turn. Is that right? I don't know. Evan, what's that?
I think it's me.
Oh, okay. Pat, what do you got?
2018.
2018. And Evan, what do you got?
2017-18.
Okay, we're going to count that as 2017.
18-19.
We're going to count this 2017. Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Evan's right.
Did you just?
Well, now wait a minute. You said 2018.
Yeah, but if we're starting with 20, but I also admitted that I had 18-19 on my brain. So.
Oh, you did. Okay.
But that was senior year of high school, which was 17-18.
I don't want to hear
I should know that.
Okay, please. Let's go to the results. First year of the NHL Stanley Cup. Evan said 1901. Pat said 1918. It was 1918 on the dot.
Oh my God.
Pat gets that one. All right. Now we know that the next two are going to be pushes. And in fact, I got to come up with harder questions because you both correctly answered 1924, the first year of the Bruins, and 1970 being the historic year where the won the Stanley Cup with Bobby Orr, famous goal flying through the air. Okay, so Pat leads 1-0 as we move to the next question, which was Ray Bourque's first goal. Pat said 1980.
78.
I'm sorry. Pat said 1978. Evan said 1979. The correct answer is 1979. So, Evan, you are back in it. It is all tied up. Yes. Okay. Double checking that. When the four teams, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Quebec, and Hartford, joined the NHL, Pat said 1979. Evan said 1974. It was, in fact, 1980. Pat gets that one. He's only off.
He said 1980 to begin with. He said 80.
Oh, wait a minute. No, the answer was 79. And Pat said 1980. So Pat was off by 1 year. Pat wins. Am I missing something?
Well, he said 1980. I thought the answer was 1980.
No, I'm
saying he said 80.
Okay, well,
well, either way, I get the point.
He's right. No. But I was trying to make sure that Pat got it because
he got it. But the answer is the 1970. Yeah, it was off by 1 year, but you were off by 5. So sorry.
Damn it.
All right.
So we're doing like Price is Right.
Forgot the rules of the game that we're keep ascending, and he went back in time after Bourque.
What?
Ray Bourque was 1979, and all these dates have kept getting more recent. Evan went back to 1974 with his guess.
Well, I didn't realize we were doing that.
Well, but he didn't know the answers at the time, though, in fairness. But
True.
But yeah, I see what
armchair quarterback.
Yeah. Oh, you're right, Pat. He would have had to have doubted his previous answer if by answering 1974. Whatever.
Yeah, that was actually Ray Bourque flying through the air.
Okay. So what are we tied at 2 apiece now? Is that what we're at?
No, he's ahead.
Oh, he's ahead by 1. Okay.
By 2. No, 1.
No, 1. You have 1. He has 2.
Yes.
2-1.
Okay, 2-1. All right. We've got 2 to go. Professional U.S. hockey players are allowed to compete in the Olympics. What year was it? The correct Pat said 2000. Evan said 1996. You guys, neither of you picked an Olympic year. I don't know when they changed, but the correct answer is 1998. You are both off by precisely 2. It is a push. We will go to the final one to see if Evan can tie this up. The new expansion era begins with the inaugural season of the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Pat said 2018. Evan said 2017. The answer is 2017. Evan pulls out the tie. I do not have a tiebreaker. I'm afraid this will end in a stalemate, but hockey games sometimes end in ties. Congratulations. Well, you both look disappointed. I'm happy
I didn't get crushed.
Oh no, this is my version of the Too Many Men on the Ice with the 2018. I was like senior of high school. I graduated 2018. That's 2018, but it was 17-18. I got to put 17.
It's always confusing when the season for sports where the season runs over 2 years, and it's football and hockey, right? It's always referred to by those 2 numbers. I always get the mix up when the Patriots won the Super Bowl because they always win the Super Bowl in a calendar date that is a year later than the actual season. Anyway.
Well, yeah, we talk about the 01 Patriots, but they won the Super Bowl in 02.
That's true. Absolutely right.
That always.
Oh, that's correct, Pat. You just won. Congratulations.
No, I was just saying it messes with me too.
Yeah, exactly.
It messes with the best.
All right. Well, well done. It is an honor just to compete with you, gentlemen. Back to you to wrap things up.
All right. Wow. So, girls episode, Pat beat me. This one, we tied. So I'm due for a win next time, I think. But that's RinkWise. Go to hockeyjournal.com for all of your hockey needs. Anything, we got you. That's Patrick Donnelly. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You RinkWise listeners, we'll see you at the rinks.